Hello EFD squad and welcome back to Continental Club with yours truly in these fine gentlemen. They need no introduction at this point, so let's dive straight in. Today we'll be covering Barcelona and their failings, which continue with last night's Supercopa defeat to Real Madrid, 5-1 in aggregate. What do Bayern need to do to win a Champions League? And we're also going to discuss the EPL summer transfer window, should it be brought forward. That is topic of the week. Now let's go straight in with Barcelona. We had a question from Shakjod21, and he asked, do you think Barcelona's problems will affect Messi and his place on the top for the coming years? Now we've sort of boiled this down to 3 lines of thought, haven't we? Bartomeu, who was obviously trending yesterday.
Yeah.
The hashtag Bartomeu out went worldwide. Their current squad and the failings within that, and their recent acquisitions or lack of.
Yes.
Pato, talk to me a little bit about Bartomeu. What are your thoughts on the current chairman, who was of course re-elected in 2015 for a further 6 years of service, beating Joan Laporta?
I think that he's just a classic scapegoat. I think when things go wrong, they like to say that it's the chairman's fault, but the chairman shouldn't be responsible for building the squad. There should be a sporting director doing that. The chairman's not responsible for tactics on the field. The manager's responsible for that. So I'm not sure that Bartomeu can really take responsibility for everything that's happened. Look, there are some conspiracy theories going around at the moment. So there's a theory that the signing of Paulinho from Guangzhou Evergrande was to do with the fact that a company that Bartomeu has an interest in wants to do a deal with the owners of Guangzhou Evergrande. Now, maybe that's true, maybe it isn't, but I really don't think so. I mean, Paulinho is a bad signing. I think we can all agree on that.
100%.
They definitely need a player in that position. They need a kind of box-to-box midfielder who can also do a bit of game control. I think they'd be better off doing that than going for another winger who's not going to be as good as Neymar. But I'm not sure that Paulinho is that guy. This is Barcelona. It's not difficult for them to attract world-class players. And now they do have the money to do it. That's been their problem recently. So I don't know. I think what they need is a stronger sporting director and a stronger manager who can say to the chairman, this is what I need, and if I don't get it, I walk. Which is what Zidane's doing with Florentino Perez. And as a result, the squad's looking more unified than it has in years.
Joseph, would the acquisition of Ousmane Dembele quell all of this drama from the Blaugrana fans?
I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think that the general manager obviously came out last night and said, we shoot this on a Thursday by the way, but he said that the signings of Coutinho and Dembele are close. Really felt like a kind of knee-jerk reaction, just appeasing the fans there. Just been spanked by your local rivals, and then we go, oh, well, we are signing 2 players, so don't panic just yet. When I think that Dembele is still a step down on Neymar, and that Coutinho is going to be massively overpriced by Liverpool.
Yep.
Probably going to pay about 40 million more than they should do, but such is the case with the market at the moment. I think there is a bigger problem with their acquisitions over the last 24 months, really. The likes of Denis Suarez, Lucas Digne, you look at even Gerard Deulofeu, not convinced about. Now Paulinho. Pato's point about sporting director, really relevant here. I think that there's big issues at that club. Obviously, Asensio's agent came out this week and said that Barcelona had the chance to buy him. He was going to go to Barcelona, and they refused to pay the €2 million for him.
They got Douglas instead.
And they got Douglas instead. And it's just unbelievable that a club of Barcelona's stature are missing out on a player over €2 million. It's basic that you've got to be snapping up players like Asensio. You see what he's doing now at Real Madrid, and I'll be honest, the gap between Real Madrid's squad and Barcelona is now a chasm. It is huge.
Yeah.
Madrid's squad is a phenomenon. It's absolutely incredible. We were talking about it in the office earlier, and we were saying how many of those players in that starting 11 would you actually replace? There's not many. Maybe you could find an upgrade on Casemiro, but you look at Modric, one of the world's best, Kroos, one of the world's best, Benzema, Asensio, probably, in my opinion, the best under-23 player in world football. Yeah, Carvajal, the best right-back in the world. Marcelo, arguably the best left-back in the world. You could probably improve on Keylor Navas slightly, but even then, I'd say he's probably up there around the top 5 goalkeepers in the world. So this Real Madrid squad is by far and away, I don't want to actually say by far and away the best in the world, because I think Bayern Munich is up there, but it's miles, far and away better than Barcelona.
But Real Madrid's second string team.
Yeah.
If you took their second 11 and dropped Messi and Suarez in it, that would be better than Barcelona's current squad.
I agree.
Honestly, I think that would get to the semi-finals of the Champions League comfortably.
Yeah, you look at the likes of Kovacic would start for Barcelona, wouldn't he? Last night they didn't even play Ronaldo or Bale. They've just sold Alvaro Morata. That's a capability that Barcelona absolutely would not have.
It's true.
If Barcelona had Alvaro Morata, he would be a starter in that team for me, or at least pushing for that position. But Real Madrid, you know, they've got the option and the luxury of selling a player like him to Chelsea and then signing some really exciting other youngsters this summer as well, haven't they?
Yeah. Ceballos,
Exactly.
Hernandez.
Who Barcelona wanted both of those, right?
Exactly, 100%.
Zidane's managed to assemble this squad, Zidane and Perez, while keeping the average age right down.
Yeah.
And in terms of money spent, Zidane's easily in the black at the moment.
Yeah.
But, the question addresses Messi, so let's go back to him just for the time being. Now, performance-wise, he had his second best season in 4 years last season with 37 goals and 9 assists. He was maintaining the same amount of key passes, that's 2.3 chances for his teammates he's creating per 90. His crosses were slightly down, but he was taking more shots than ever before, on 5.3. Now, his dribbling is on a slow decline. He's completing 3.7 take-ons per game, but that's down from 5.6 from an all-time high of 2010. But you'd expect that. He's no longer that explosive winger who comes from deep. He's now developing it into a more predatory striker and a chief creator, it would seem. Now, we've got some more stats to back up those claims. He's actually involved far less in play than he ever was before. He's averaging around 40 passes from 68 in 2010 per 90, so far less involved in play. He's taking more shots from outside the box though. That might be because of his phenomenal record rather than necessarily being deeper. But he's actually taking less from inside the penalty area than ever before. He seems to be operating between the striker and the midfield in that sort of Iniesta role. Maybe he feels like his future is as that chief creator as Iniesta ages. Messi, I think, will be fine in that number 10 role moving forward. Interesting to see Nelson Semedo make his debut yesterday. What do you guys think of him?
Yeah, he's an okay player. I actually read an article though in Mundo Deportivo that quoted four players from inside the dressing room that all said Nelson Semedo was worse than Douglas when he first arrived. So that worries me a little bit. I thought the guy had massive potential in a 3-5-2 system. I'm quite excited to see what he does at right wing back. But when you've got 4 players in the Barcelona dressing room slamming him like that in the first week, pretty worrying.
I mean, that doesn't bode well. Maybe his little fracas with Neymar prompted them to say that.
Maybe.
But guys, what do you think? What do Barcelona need to do to come back to the fore? Let us know in the comments below. Next question comes from Patrick Savanas, and he said, lads, why don't you talk about Celtic's magnificent 5-0 win last night over the Kazakh champions?
No one cares.
For the rest of the episode.
Shitov scored an own goal, mate.
Shitov by name, Shitov by nature. No, really, he asked, what do Bayern Munich need to do if they want to win the Champions League? Now, obviously last year, they went out to Real Madrid 6-3 in the quarter-final stage after Ronaldo's star turn where he scored 5 over the 2 legs, if memory serves me correctly. Now, they haven't been in a final since 2013. Shock, horror, 4 years. And their last semi-final was 2015-16. Now, they have appeared in the second most semi-finals in the competition's format after Real Madrid. So they are fairly consistent when it comes to the Champions League. But club legend Oliver Kahn has said that Ancelotti should be looking over his shoulder after last season's failings in Europe, because that hierarchy really want that European silverware, don't they?
Yeah.
They said it when Pep was at the club, and they're saying it again now. But he also did implore the club to spend more. But they have spent quite a lot on Talisa, haven't they? Joseph, what do you make of their chances moving forward and their recent acquisitions?
The chances are good, as they are every single season. And their acquisitions, as usual, have been astute. They've spent smartly. I think Tolisso is the Bundesliga record signing at 41 million euros, but looks like a starter in that side. Sula came in for very cheap, didn't he? Obviously, a German centre-back that's young, starting in the national team. Looks a very, very good prospect. I saw some Bayern Munich fans talking about Sebastian Rudy as well, really bigging him up. Looks like a really intelligent signing. So I think in terms of their signings, Oliver Kahn's talking nonsense. I don't think Bayern Munich need to be the club that goes out and spends 200 million euros on Neymar. They're not that side. And the German football, the way German football is set up in the Bundesliga, doesn't really allow for that either. So I don't think the signings are a worry. I think injuries are potentially more of a worry. consistently Bayern Munich are struggling with injuries. Every single summer, they have a major injury in pre-season. Luckily, it's not been a single one this year. However, you've seen James out for 4 weeks. You've seen Thiago picking up more injuries, haven't you? Neuer's broken his foot. Going forward in the season, you've just got to hope they can keep the likes of Ian Robben fit, and particularly Robert Lewandowski. If Robert Lewandowski picks up a major injury, where those goals come from in that Bayern Munich squad, I'm not overly convinced about. I don't know about you, Pato.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a worry, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because Müller didn't have his greatest season last year, but you'd imagine that he'll rebound. I mean, the real issue for me is if Thiago gets injured. This season, they're far better equipped to deal with that eventuality because they have got James Rodriguez, who can shoulder the creative burden, and now they've got quite a beefy midfield who can cover for the kind of passing and defensive output that Thiago has. I really think that what they need to win a Champions League title is a little bit of luck.
Yeah.
Like 3 of the last 4 years, they've gone out to the eventual champions. When they went out to Atletico Madrid 2 seasons ago, they were the better side and got pretty unlucky, I'd say. And they got really unlucky against Real Madrid last year. I mean, in hindsight, everyone's saying, well, Real Madrid have won 2 Champions Leagues on the trot, so they must be comfortably the best side in Europe. But they were outplayed in that second leg. They should have gone out. They should have had a man sent off before Bayern did. They had an offside goal that was allowed. They had every stroke of luck you could possibly have asked for in that leg. Now, that's not to take away from their victory, but it's also to say that Bayern could just as easily have gone through. And at one point in that second leg at the Bernabeu, it did look like they were going to.
Yeah.
So I look at it this season and you think, who are your favourites for Europe? You think Real Madrid, you think Bayern Munich, and you think maybe Juventus after that. But frankly, if Bayern can get a decent run and Real Madrid have a tough run to the final for once, then they might actually walk to the title if Real Madrid can get knocked out before they get there.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree. I think Pep was unfortunate not to get to a final in his tenure as well. Now, touching upon what you said, I think Lewandowski scored 30% of Bayern's league goals last season. Obviously, as you said as well, Müller only scored 5, didn't have his greatest return. So I think, yes, he's going to need to step it up. And there's that big question that still remains, is Lewandowski entirely happy at Bayern Munich after those rumblings in pre-season? But I honestly can't see where he's going to go.
Yeah.
So obviously keeping him and keeping him happy is essential. Müller needs to contribute more. But guys, can Bayern Munich win a Champions League this year? Let us know in the poll, floating above my head.
My head.
Your head. Last but not least, gentlemen, we're on the topic of the EPL summer transfer window, and should it be brought forward to protect sporting integrity? That is, should we still be able to buy players in the Premier League when the competition started, basically?
Yeah.
In order for this to go through, in order to bring it forward, 14 of the 20 clubs need to vote yes on it. Joseph, is there any stern opposition from the top teams?
Manchester United have reservations.
Shock.
And I'm not sure if I'm in favour of it, I'll be honest.
Really?
I think that there are a few major issues with it. And the top 6 teams, in fact, the whole Premier League should be a little bit worried about it. I know that everybody seems to be, oh, let's get it done, it's going to make it fairer. But let's not forget that Germany, Spain and Italy would all continue to have theirs past that set date. So Philippe Coutinho, for example, if he was to leave this week, next week, Liverpool would be fucked. Because they would be able to sign nobody after that deadline.
It's gone. Couldn't replace any big outgoing transfer.
If there's a major outgoing transfer from a Premier League club, then there's no chance they can sign them until January. So then Liverpool have got a 6-month stint without their key player in Philippe Coutinho. It could be the same for a number of different clubs. If Diego Costa's relationship wasn't so bad with Chelsea and Atletico did manage to snap him up and he was a starting striker and they hadn't signed Morata, that's a major issue. That's a major gap to plug. So I just wonder whether this only works if it works for the whole of Europe. I think it's unfair on the Premier League if it's just the Premier League.
But I think in a way the Premier League might be using their financial power to force a move on the rest of Europe. I think that if the Premier League were to do this, then other leagues would probably go the same way, purely because of the fact that a lot of teams in other leagues go out and buy players from even smaller leagues using money they get from the Prem. So there's a kind of like drip down effect. I think that I don't really care. You know? It's just not a thing I really give a shit about. Like, there's a part of me that would quite like to go back to the old days when there was no transfer window and you can make transfers at any point during the year. But I do think that would result in stuff like, say, Chelsea would think, right, we want to buy X player, but we'll wait until he's played against, say, Man City before we buy him from Southampton. You know, so that is a little bit open to kind of chicanery. But
lovely word.
You're welcome. But yeah, I don't know. Do you care?
I can see why they want to bring it forward, to be perfectly honest. If you were a manager, it'd be an absolute pain in the arse
100%.
Preparing for the season and all that entails, while you've still got, you know, the likes of Coutinho, Diego Costa, Virgil van Dijk hanging over your shoulder. So from a purely pragmatic point of view, and empathising with the managers, then yes, bring it forward. And a lot of the big teams are getting their business done early anyway.
Yeah.
Jose Mourinho's 8 targets that he's had over the last 2 years, well, 7, isn't it? He's only got 3 this season.
Yeah.
Have all been done very early. And bad business tends to be done at the end of the window.
It does.
So I don't think it'd have any great impact. I think they should make a decision one way or another and just move on.
But don't you think, though, like, there is a little bit of it where you think, it's kind of like a red card happening halfway through a game. It can then ruin the rest of the game. And similarly, sometimes you look at a team and they're great and then they just lose one key player in the middle of the season. You're like, well, they're out of the title race now. And I do think you'd see fewer teams kind of race away with the title over the final stretch, because other teams would think, well, Jesus Christ, we're going to go out and we're going to like do everything we can to try and make this a close race. And I would welcome the last couple of months of the season not being boring.
I mean, January will be unaffected, obviously.
Yeah.
So,
but nobody does business in January anymore. It's almost
Exactly.
a dead, like a dead and void window.
Dead and buried. But guys, what do you think? Do you care? Let us know in the comments below. So guys, that was this week's Continental Club. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed. What do you want to see us talk about next week? Get at us on Twitter and on Instagram. What else is there to watch on EFD, Pato?
Well, there's Stat Wars as usual. It's Stat Wars the Champions at the moment. And we've got a regular episode coming up for you. Chris and I make our triumphant return. Triumphant for one of us anyway. Of course, there's Football Mundial and more great top 10s. If you want to see more of this knob, check out VFN on Football Daily. Don't know why you would.
Bye.
Bye.